Hey everybody, today on the Agent Excel podcast, we have our guest Bobby Lieb. Hey Bobby, how you doing?
We're doing good, thank you.
Good, man. I went to physical therapist like a week ago, and I walked in and they said, "Hey, how'd you hear about us?" I said, "Bobby Lieb." "Oh, the mayor of Central," is what they said. It's funny how I say your name in that area and they're like, "Oh yeah, we know him."
Certain places are okay. That's the physical therapists were regulars over there. Other places I'd be worried about it, but sometimes it's good.
That's funny. Yeah, so it was interesting. They were just so all about you there. And I was like, man, this guy's really made a name in this neighborhood. So you did that well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But so, Bobby, what got you into real estate? I mean, I know you for dominating a certain zone of a certain zone of the area. What got you into real estate?
You hear my dogs in the background.
Yeah, that's all good.
So basically, I play. Hey guys, sorry,
You're fine.
Animals. So I got into real estate about. Let's start over. Let me lock these guys up.
No, let's pause. That's fine.
Lock them up. So hang on.
Yeah. So, Bobby, what got you into selling real estate? You kind of, what I know you for is just owning a certain part of town. I shouldn't say owning, but you dominate a certain part of town as far as just production. What got you into the business? How many years have you been doing it?
So the first part of the question was, I used to have a nightclub in Phoenix, and my dad moved out to Phoenix in 1964, and my brother and I lived in Atlanta. We come out and visit him a couple of times a year. So I knew I really wanted to come out here eventually. And my dad had a nightclub here in the 70s. Actually 78 was when I came out here. I was playing college baseball. So we had the nightclub for about 7 or 8 years. As a matter of fact, halfway through, I hired this disc jockey who's now been my wife for 35 years. And she told me to F off the first night. So it didn't take much. And then so we had, that was fun because we had about 2,000 members, 2,500 members, and pretty much the only nightclub in town. And then about a year later, we opened up a second club at Central and Comeback after we sold the first one. 1 year into that, I turned 30 and we had our first kid. And I go, you know what? I hate people. I cannot be in the bar business anymore because the hours suck and I want to stay married. And just as hard. So there's a guy that came in our club, Mark Moskowitz, who was the top, pretty much the top realtor in the Valley and had been for a long time with realty executives. And he said, look, everybody in Phoenix, I love to partner up with you, which basically meant you want my money, I have money. But he was such a great guy, knew everybody. We both knew the same people. And I just thought it was a real compatible fit. There also was another guy, Ronnie Gilbert, that was there. And I really felt, but you know what, in the beginning, Chris, I didn't let go of the nightclub. I still kept on for about 2 months because you had that steady income and I had not really started making any money in real estate. What got me into real estate full board is pretty much the first week when I came to work with Mark and Ronnie at the other real estate company. I did an open house, totally vacant, nothing in the house. There was no TV, no people were coming in there. I had just gotten off late at the nightclub that night because I was just I was doing both. And I fell asleep during the open house. And fortunately for me, one of my two partners woke me up from a deep coma. And I go, you know what, it's 100% now. And we still kept the club, but I did not, I started doing real estate full time. And little by little, Mark, because he knew so many people, just was a great mentor. I mean, I brought people to the table for listings, but I was a nightclub slug. Mark had the credibility, and basically we got the listing and I learned how to do real estate. And during the interim, he'd take off for about a month, not be involved in the deal, then we closed it. So eventually Mark really got me into the business and I stayed with him for about 5 years.
So what those years look like at the beginning? Like how many transactions were you doing? Like how kind of the progression go? Because and we'll get to where you're at now. I mean, you're a massive producer, but what did those early years look like?
It wasn't bad. I think my first year I made a whopping $30,000, which was about twice what my dad paid me in the nightclub business. But, going back, like I said earlier, playing college sports, I've always hated to lose. And I would go on these real estate tours and watch how some of these agents are doing. And I just felt like, you know what, I can do what they're doing. I'm very fortunate that my dad moved out here such a long time ago that I felt I could really capture it. And so, you know, little by little, I would bring deals to the table. Of course, Mark would co-list them. Everything was 50-50 for about 5 years. But eventually they started feeding me deals that I couldn't have got without them. I bring them deals to the table. So I started making about 100 grand, probably about year 2 or year 3. And they were making, you got to realize back then, we were selling luxury homes for 700,000. This was 25 years ago. Now you can't even get a condo, a 1-bedroom condo for that. So, but I think he was pretty much the first guy who had a team concept. So I really, learning from him and watching. And so I think little by little, I was probably doing maybe 25 to 30 to 40 deals a year. But remember, I had just turned 30, 31, and 50% of what I made went to him. And I was okay with that because I did pretty good in selling the nightclub. But more importantly, I just felt like, I wasn't going to get rich quick, but I felt because of all my contacts of people that my dad had created for me, eventually it would pay off.
So how many units are you doing now? So like, what was last year like for you?
Are you with the IRS? The last 5 years by myself, I've averaged 120 homes a year. Don't ask me how. I don't sleep. I don't, my kids are older now, but pretty much about 120 homes a year for the last 5 years. And this year alone, I've already closed 30. I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you. This has not been a fun year with all the bloodbaths out there, but then I've got about 10 or 15 escrow, but it's definitely a challenge right now, but that I like challenges, I guess, or I'm a sick human being, but I've averaged about 100 homes a year sold by myself because I don't have a team.
Well, and that's what you always, you always mention that you don't have a team, and I always applaud you for that. So what does that look like? Then you're saying 120. So let's talk about, because when the listeners hear 120, that just sounds insane to do by yourself.
Right.
But you do have to have some type of leverage here and there. So kind of talk about maybe admin or maybe even some type of variable expense that you have. Sure. As far as like help.
Great question. So I have an assistant, licensed assistant, it's been with me for 22 years. And I almost pay her like I would a partner. I mean, because if it wasn't for her, I do all the listings myself and the showings, but paperwork I'm not good at and keeping me out of trouble. So Kathy's with me for 22 years, and pretty much we'll do, she'll set up all the appointments for inspections and all the details, the title companies for closings, opening escrows. So you got to realize she is also crazy because she's not only selling, I'm selling the 120 homes to get credit for it, but she's keeping track of the listings, which become escrows, and also one person. So we're pretty much a 2-person deal. Now, in the last year, I now have my former disc jockey, my wife, is work with me, telling me all the things I'm doing wrong. And she has a lot more patience for all these multiple offer stuff. So she just started working with me about the last year and a half.
So is she out there showing homes for you, or?
Yeah, because you know what, it's funny because yeah, she is, but mostly not the high end stuff. She's kind of doing the medium price range. I don't want to say medium. I don't even know what medium is anymore, but she's got we probably about 8 or 10 people that have been waiting for, patio homes or homes under $1 million, whatever it may be. So yeah, she's doing showings and helping me out. She actually did a showing for me in Chandler the other day. And I think, I barely know where Chandler is. So I had her go out for me, but yeah, she's doing showings and helping me out to a certain extent. Yeah.
So before your wife was helping out on the showings, how did that look? I know you predominantly stay in one area, so it's probably simpler for you to do, but still 120 in one area is still a lot. So did you have anybody going out and showing homes or anything like that?
I did not. No. Wow. I didn't put a lot of gas on my car, which is good, especially now. But I probably sold about 10 homes a year in PV where I first started. But predominantly, it's about a 5-6 mile radius in North Central, and which would help is right back then, when you sell somebody's house, there are other houses to choose from. Remember those days?
Yep.
Unlike now. So that was two houses right away. And I was a dual agent many times because again, a lot of the listings that they would buy would be my own listings. But yeah, I mean, I hate to think about the numbers, but it's crazy. I mean, I'm up early in the morning. I mean, I even tell, I mean, you probably heard me say before, on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, everybody's sleeping. I'm trying to recreate every year what I'm doing differently because every year changes. But I don't sleep a lot, I guess, is kind of the tips. I do play golf on Sundays, but just I love what I do.
Well, you taught a class one time that I went to, and you mentioned that you're like, hey, I sell predominantly in this area, and you gave the boundaries. And I'm the guy who I hear stage talk all the time. You know what stage talk is? It's the people that say stuff on stage, but then they don't realize that we can go and look up actually things on the MLS as if we're like private investigators. So I went back and I pulled up your numbers and I saw the map of everything plotted out. And I was like, this guy's no joke on staying in one area. I think there was like 2 stragglers that were out of that zone. And I was like, that's probably like a sister or like a super like high client's niece that need, like he was doing that one for a reason. So you were like, you're really in that zone. Now, when I looked at that, how does that happen? Meaning you being in the Valley or just in Maricopa County, you have to be given work that's outside of that zone because everybody would be referring you to their coworkers, family, friends that don't live in your area.
Right.
How do you handle that? Is it just referral fees or what's that structure look like for you?
Well, I think first of all, for me, when to do North Central like I have, I mean, I just studied, to me it was a challenge. I mean, again, playing college baseball, playing college sports, I go, you know what? If these guys can do it, I can do it. There's enough room for another person in here. And and there's some great agents that I started competing against, and eventually a lot of it had to do with I knew them. I mean, and even today's world, I had my dad knew so many people when he came out here that I knew my dad's friends' kids, and a lot of them were in North Central at the time. And I just started, I coached a lot of the kids in the area. I did my advertising strictly North Central. So I just focused on this area, spent my money in this area. And it didn't happen overnight. That's what people, I know people got their license 2 years ago and they think, oh my God, this is so easy. And now they have no sales the first 3 or 4 months out of the year and they're quitting because they don't have relationships or they don't have, just knowing people. And I tell you what, truthfully, the nightclub helped me a lot because a lot of people that I deal with came from the club. And, thank God I was nice to them when they came in. I called them cabs. They had too much to drink. So, people remember stuff like that. But I think really it's just, I felt this is where I wanted to be. And I felt I could do it. And I still do Paradise Valley. I still do 10, 12 home year last year. And I also don't consider myself a luxury agent. I mean, I sold 30 homes over $1 million last year and 80 under $1 million. So I just sell everything. I don't care if it's a condo. I've never stereotyped any value of a house. I'll sell it. But I just think I wanted this area and I looked at it as a challenge and felt that I could make it my area. Now, the problem is when my kids went to school in this particular area in North Central, I was a star realtor for 4 years. And then as soon as my kids graduated, another star realtor would come in. So you kind of lose the school connection, but you just got to make it up somewhere else. Because, there's not a lot of loyalty in our industry. And even now, I am just advertising more than I ever have because there's a lot of people that are doing what we do. And I don't want people to forget you. I don't care how long I've been in this area and how many homes I've sold. There's not a lot of loyalty. You got to keep your face in front of people.
So what does it look like when somebody, because you're so strict on your area, like if somebody sends you business right now and it's not in that zone, what do you do?
I'll take it. I actually I do a lot of divorce work too from Maricopa County Superior Court for the family courts, where the homes I get for them when the courts hire me, they're outside of my area. I of course will take that. I hope I can put lockbox on the house, so I don't have to make that drive at 4 o'clock. But you know, I certainly, I'm never going to turn. I just did one down in South Mountain that I felt like that was a long drive for me. That was over 25 minutes. But you know, that the good news of that one, that was a lockbox. But I'll go wherever I got to go. I mean, I'm never going to turn down business. I had one in Goodyear, which sounds like I'm moving out of the country, but I'm not going to turn it down. But I'm hoping I can do a lockbox on it. But I certainly not stupid enough to say give it to somebody else unless it's really, really way out there.
Well, when you say that though, you were mentioning listings. So what does the buyers look like for you? Like when someone refers you to their like, let's say a client in your area refers you to their son who's buying out in Buckeye, $450,000 house. Do you have like, what's your structure? Cause I can't think you just say no. Do you have like a process for that on referring it out to an agent, or cause I can't imagine you driving out in Buckeye, showing homes. So what does that look
Why
like?
would you say that?
Because
No, you're right. No, I'm just messing with you.
No, I know.
No, I don't. You're right. I do. If it's a buyer that, does not know a specific area they want to buy in, then I will refer it out to somebody in our company that specializes in that area. Great question. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not, if it's a listing, I'm going for it. If it's a
Sure.
listing, I'm gonna go out there. But if it's a buyer who's not sure if they want to be in Buckeye or if they want to be in Apache Junction, I'm not doing that. I've been in this business long enough that I'm not going to take them all over the map. So I definitely will refer it out to somebody in our company that will take it on, and hopefully they close them, which they do. That part, I do not take on. If it's in the area that I'm in, of course I'll take it, but outside, not going to do that.
And when you mention those numbers, it's probably not even those referrals that you're sending out probably aren't even in those 120s that you're mentioning, correct?
They're not.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me what your marketing looks like for you to dominate an area. I think first, you obviously have to be good at what you do. Second, people have to know you. Third, I think you have to stay in front of them all the time. What does that look like for you as far as marketing?
I just happen to have, if I can put this up here, I'll show you.
Yeah.
My first, so when I first started, here's the postcards I do.
Okay.
I do pretty simple, oversized postcards with the back there. So when I first started, I did a personal newsletter where it went to specific people, not just occupant. It was to them, telling them, here's people that used to come to my nightclub. Here's what I'm doing now. I'm in real estate, and I really tried to make personal. That was my wife, by the way. So I really try to make personal letters and just say, hey guys, here's what I'm doing. I appreciate you coming to my nightclub, but now I am now selling real estate. I'm working with Mark Moskowitz, who everybody knew. So the personal newsletter worked really well. The problem is it got to be real cumbersome, and I couldn't keep up with it. I had somebody doing it for me. Initially, our area that, sorry if I'm at a screen here, we also have in our area something called the North Central News. And in here, I'll do like a double page. I do 2 pages in here. And you may look in here, this picture I have in my ad, I think it was from 9 years ago, because I looked better 9 years ago. So I don't have any, but you know what? But you got to do something. I mean, I think the postcards, I'll do 2 different ways. What I'll do is I'll take the general area where I market, and the first part of the month, I'm going to go for homes that are maybe under 700,000 or 800,000. I'll show homes I've sold in that price range. They're my listings I've sold, and sending out to, and I'll have a title company help me with the square footage. Maybe if it's a $700,000 house, I'll keep the square footage of the house maybe under 2,000. Send out about 1,500 postcards, and then the second part of the month, I'll go after luxury. I'll go after the $1 million plus, and I'll show these are the homes I've sold. But I'll tell you one thing that I always say in my class, and you and your wife were in it before, you've got to do something. You've got to set a budget together. And I don't really have a budget, but I'm consistent. I'm doing something almost every 2 weeks. I mean, this is a little harder market. You know what? It's a challenge for me. I don't advertise on TV. So I'm having to do, going back to my basics and doing postcards, and doing the newsletter. But you've got to, when I do my class, I ask agents how much money they spend. Some say nothing for 2 or 3 months, you're not going to survive if you don't spend money. You've got to do something, even if it's minimal. And one thing about the postcards is the title company, whoever company you're with, and mortgage companies will help you pay for that. But you can do, it's also bulk. And if you do over 250 or 300, it's a half price for the mail out. But you're sending your stuff out. You'd be surprised how many times I'll come on a listing, somebody I don't know, and they'll have my postcard there, which is pretty cool to let me know. Okay, so maybe that mail out for that one particular month cost me $1,500. That's one listing. So I'm not saying everybody has to do to that amount. I certainly did spend that kind of money when I first started, but every month I've always done something, and I'm sleepless nights thinking, okay, why did that person get that listing? Maybe they're related to them. You can't stop that part, but it pisses me off when I don't get a listing, especially if I go on an appointment and get beat out and the agent rubs it into me because I know them. That's extra anger. But it's competitive, and
Yeah.
they know they can't get. We all, there's so much respect for each other in our area that we sell in, but it's a competitive business right now, and there's a lot of good agents out there. So, but the advertising, I've done bus stops. One thing that failed for me was I hired a PR company, and I tried to take on. Biltmore is really close to where I live, so I tried to take on the Biltmore. And it was about $3,000 a month. After about 6 months, I wasn't getting any business from it. And on the 7th month, she said, try it one more time. I did it. So I think it cost me 25 grand I spent. Here's what they gave me in return. I got no business out of it, but they got me on TV about 10 different times at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning when everybody's sleeping, talking about a topic I knew nothing about. And I'm thinking, okay, I did live TV. I didn't even know what I was talking about. Nobody ever called me, said I saw you on TV, because they were sleeping. But the PR company put a value of $10,000. That's worth $10,000 to be on TV, even though nobody saw me. So that's but I tried something and it failed. But you've got to keep doing something out there. I know some people do door hangers, but when you stop advertising, you're giving you and your wife, you give my wife and I an advantage, and you don't want to do that. You got to do something creative to keep marketing. I know every company has a marketing division that you need to get in touch with them and find out what to do.
So when you
Did I lose you?
no, you there?
Oh, sorry.
No. So when you send those postcards out to your like geographical farm area that you work, let's say. So what do you do for your like network of people, like the people who are in your actual network that you've closed deals with? Are you just saying that I only work this area, therefore why would I need to have a database? My database is this area? Or do you have like a system that you put all your past clients in and you're still marketing to them as well?
I think you know me better in that I don't have a system. I don't have a database. Um, I really just consistently send the same area. One thing I'm not real good at, even if I'm selling 100 homes a year, I do not keep in touch with those people. But fortunately, a lot of them are in the area that I keep advertising in, so they get my obnoxious mail outs and emails and what have you. But I'm not real good about keeping track of database. But again, if they're in the area that my postcards are going to, and whatever else, the North Central News, they're seeing my ads. And I'll tell you what, Chris, the best thing that works for me is having signs out there. You know what? I'm a true believer that if I sell a house, or when I sell a house, even if it's at midnight, I'm going out and putting a sold sign on that property right away. And people go, well, you're not getting sign calls. I don't care about sign calls if it's sold, even though when I say sold, it still hasn't closed yet. Because if somebody's driving through that neighborhood and they see a sold sign of mine in that next day or something like that, that gets me more calls and more productive calls with listings than somebody call me, ask me about a house that I have in escrow, ask me 10 questions. First question, how much is it? And then when I tell them at the end, that they go, well, it's too much. Well, they knew that the first time I answered. So I think I waste so much energy telling people about a house that they can't afford. And I'm okay with that. But the sold sign is another marketing tool that I think people should use.
Well, I think what's great about your business model is it's defined, meaning, for example, like when you say you put a sold sign on right away, it's because you're trying to build a brand in that area, where if somebody had signs all over, they might be trying to use that sign to capture more buyers and things like that. But you're looking at that sold sign as a way to really just like be a marketing piece of the community, because I've drove down Central before, and it's a little bit different now just with inventory being down. I think all of our signs are less, but you straight up dominate that area. When I drive down that, I sometimes I'm like, did he? Sometimes I see your sign, I'm like, is there even a house around here, or did he just put that sign on the corner? And
I've
I'm
been
like,
accused of that before, just so you know, Chris. Yeah. You know what? I love, you and I both know selling homes on busy streets is not easy. It's a challenge. But when you sell one and you can put a sold sign on a busy street that has 75,000 cars going by a day, you couldn't pay for that advertising. But selling it's a little bit different. But yeah, it does pay, and people see the signs. And even if they haven't talked to you in a little while, you're talking about keeping in touch with your database. If they see your sign, they know you're still in business, and that kind of helps you. Now, the only thing about putting a sold sign in a house is if you have, if a flipper buys it, they have a tendency of canceling every 5 days because they're trying to wholesale it out.
right.
I've had a couple that I've at midnight, I've changed the 5 different times to when it finally closes, but I've had to change it canceled 5 times. That's the only problem of doing that. But I just feel like I get more mileage of having that sold than not, so people will know that it's active. That I want them to know that I've sold it, so they'll call me and hopefully get more business from it.
When you say you don't have like a database, let's say, I mean, not even your assistant, like she's not keeping track of anything behind the scenes as far as like a CRM or a database.
I do know what a CRM is now. I didn't a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, we have the names. We definitely have the addresses and the people in her system. So because look, at the time we used to have 30, 40 listings at one time, which was kind of crazy. There'd be some times where clients would call and I go, Kathy, who is that? She goes, you have their listing. So it doesn't happen now. That's kind of embarrassing when somebody calls, you know who they are, but we don't have that problem now with 5 listings. Yeah, but I mean, we definitely have the names that we know. Like I'll say, if somebody calls me 5 years later, Kathy, who was that? And she'll tell me, because I mean, look, after 5, 6 years, you forget people, unfortunately, sometimes. But yeah, we definitely have it. I don't have it in my system. That's not something that I do and send out. I mean, hopefully they're in the area that I market, but if they're not, they probably don't hear from me that often, which is good for them, I guess, sometimes.
Where do you see the biggest challenges coming up in real estate? I mean, you just mentioned at one time having maybe 30 listings, and now 5. Where do you see just the biggest challenges as for like the market and for just an individual realtor like you and I?
Truthfully, other realtors.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, and I get along famously with, I mean, even if you and I probably competed for listings before, and if you got one from me, I'm still pissed off at you. But you know what? I would tell you, today's world, this is probably my biggest issue right now. And I actually did a podcast today. First of all, I didn't even know what a podcast was 2 years ago, just so you know. But my biggest thing is communication. And what you'll find for me is I always answer my phone. And when you call people nowadays, the people who have been doing this business for a long time, they answer their phone. The newer agents do not answer their phone. And what happens, Chris, is let's just say you're a client of mine and you're asking me a question about a house and you're calling me because you want me to show you the house. If I'm telling you, which I wouldn't tell the client, this agent has not called me back in 4 times, I'll keep calling the agent till they answer the phone, because it makes you look bad when Chris Bauer's asking me to show him a house and I can't get a hold of the agent. And the agent, your client's going to think that, what are you, incompetent? No, these guys won't answer the phone. And that is just, that really, I was real lucky when I started many years ago, 30 years ago. I used to ride in the car with agents, and even if they were competitors, I learned what made them. I earned a lot of respect for them and the camaraderie. And you'd be surprised in today's world. There's one example. I think I mentioned my wife took somebody out to Chandler, and the agent was getting ready to do an open house on 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. I called her up that morning because my client really wanted the house. And I said, tell me, what is it? And I knew she was. I said, tell me, what is it going to take to buy this house? And she goes, well, I'm doing an open house. And I go, okay, what if you don't do the open house and my client offers you what you want? And she goes, Bobby, let me call you back. Call me back in 5 minutes. Here's what my client wants. My client wrote up an offer. So the agent now says, okay, and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. So we've already got this conversation. She answered her phone at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm calling her 8:30. So she says, I'll get you, and I'll get it taken care of, 5 or 6 o'clock this afternoon. I said, no. I just got you. I'm getting you a full price offer. You and I have known each other. I wrote for 50,000 over. I think it was 950. We wrote it for $1 million. And within an hour, she got it back to me. It doesn't always happen that way, but we got that deal done. Her client made more money than they thought they'd make. She didn't have to do an open house, and we got a deal done. It doesn't happen, but it happened because I knew the agent and she answered the phone. So I hate to tell you, it's other agents right now that don't communicate with you, make you as an agent look bad, which I said in my other podcast with another real estate company. And that's the biggest challenge I see right now. If I'm calling you, Chris, and you have the listing, I get it. You may not want to, you may not show it for a couple of days, but at least answer your phone, and you do. And I do. I may not have the answer, but people can never say I'm dodging them. That is so frustrating because you're making you as an agent, you look bad in front of your client who may say, well, he's not following back up with me. I'm going to hire another agent. So that's really, to me, the biggest challenge I'm having right now is disrespect for me I'm not saying because I've been doing this a long time, but return my call. If I'm calling you
Right.
because I have a question for you. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of rambled a little bit.
No, you did. And that's, I like how I like how you said you kind of just attacked that situation of like trying to put the deal together. I think communication is lost right now in our industry more than ever. And like I had one, I'm doing listings kind of the same style that people want right now. List it Tuesday, no open houses till Saturday and Sunday. It's not probably the best for the real estate community, but it's what the consumers want. Therefore, we have to give it to them. And last week, I had somebody call me and put a deal together before the open house. And I remember the agent just talking to me and saying, hey, what would we need to do to get this under contract before the open house? And I said, you'd have to give my client an offer that they wouldn't want to put it on the market and put it under contract before the open house. This week, we put one on Tuesday. We were supposed to have open houses tomorrow and Sunday. Same thing. The realtor went over like 20 or 30. And I was like, I don't know in this market if that's going to be something that's going to attract them to not go to the open market. They came back with just a slam dunk offer. And I told my clients, hey, this is up to you. It's your decision. We could get more, we could get less. It's up to you. And I'm finding out that, if the more and more agents answered their phones, we could be putting deals together. Not saying we need to do them quickly, or not saying the realtor, shouldn't go do the open house. I'm not trying to make people be lazy, but there are times and situations where someone might make you a better offer out the gate before you go compete in the market. So I like how you are still trying to structure deals, get people on the phone, and at least going back, I think more importantly than ever now, is just going back to your clients and not saying that we just got rejected, that they sit back and say, hey, Bobby or Chris, like they did all they could and I still didn't get it. I think that's all I want anymore, is just for people to know I put in the best effort and the best fight. Maybe your financial position didn't allow you to get it, but we can never say it was a lack of effort on realtor side. And I'm sure that's what, your goal is as well.
Yeah, but let me tell you something too about these circus showings with 2 or 3 days. I talked to the title company and I'm seeing 25 to 30% of deals crashing because people, let me give you an example. I did a deal in Arcadia last year. And it was almost a $2 million house. And I did it coming soon. And I had, I think 12 or 13 people come through the house. I got 2 offers. One of them was over and we accepted it, I think at 9 o'clock that night. And then I had a backup offer too. When you get a phone call the next morning, like at 6 o'clock in the morning from that agent, you know, it's not a good call. And sure enough, the agent goes, you know, Bobby, my client really wanted a 3-car garage, and it was a 2-car garage. Maybe that was their excuse because but they got caught up in the fever there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing a lot of people do. They go, I got to make an offer here quickly. Don't. And today I have a house that somebody made an offer a couple of days ago. There was like 3 or 4 people. They came back today to see if they really wanted the house, even though they tied up. And that makes me feel uncomfortable because they didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time in the house because there were so many people in there. So going back to what you said, doing a deal before it goes into before it goes on the MLS, or not is on the MLS, before it goes to the dog and pony show where I call on the weekend, you'd be surprised you can make a deal work and get it closed. I mean, to me, it's great you got 20,000 over, but then here's the other issue I'm concerned about as a realtor. You're having the client waive the appraisal, you're having the client waive the inspection. And I'm talking to people in different real estate companies. There's going to be some lawsuits coming up because when you're telling, and you know, hopefully you have something you're signing off saying, I didn't, you know, I made sure that they knew they did that on their own fruition. But it's kind of scary when everybody gets caught up into it, and you, the real estate agent, not you, but just I'm just using an example,
Yeah.
saying, hey, waive all your rights, you're going to get it, pay cash. And you know what? It's just when it closes a year from now, that client realizes maybe they got a friend that's an attorney going, Bobby didn't do a good job in telling you to waive all your rights. And I'm telling you, talking to some of the attorneys now, they're saying there's going to be some lawsuits down the pike here, kind of like the short sale foreclosure. Those of us that had to deal with that crap back in
Right.
2010, 2011. So I just be careful of, maybe you can minimize the number of days for inspection, but it's hard when you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 offers in there. You got to give away all your rights. And I just think that's a scary position to put yourself in.
Yeah. And to go back to the dog and pony show that you mentioned, or whatever we called it, the circus. I've noticed, I've talked to a few agents recently, just agents I know that do it this way, and not trying to tell them how to do their business, but some of them are doing these like 2-hour windows on Saturday.
How about 1 hour? How about 1 hour?
And that one, I'm really cautious because I've talked to a few listing agents that respect me enough for me able to critique them without getting hit.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. I can understand sellers controlling the process of, you know, maybe a Friday for 3 hours, a Saturday for 3 hours. Just what they're trying to do is control the time where they just take the dogs, they take the kids, and it's controlled where it's not 30 showings individually throughout the week. So I can understand that one. But the 1 hour on a Saturday, I told one of the listing agents, I said, not only did you put you're going to check the lockbox reports, right? So it can't be a sight unseen offer. It's only 1 hour. There's still a lot of people out there that have a lot of cash to throw at housing that didn't get through the door, that still don't want to do a sight unseen offer. They still want to see it. And I'm like, I don't think that's probably beneficial to the actual homeowner at that point. Yes, maybe for convenient wise of them leaving for 1 hour, but for just the highest dollar for their house, I don't think it's the best way, because I still have many clients that are like, hey, I can't go at 1 p.m. on Saturday. I've got a birthday.
Right.
And you just feel like, I'm like, man, they are cutting themselves short, but you know, I guess that's the challenge in our industry. And I think that leads up to, you know, what we were talking about previously, is you just saying that the agents in the market can sometimes be the most challenging.
Not can, they are. I mean, I think it's because, look, we're all competitors. We compete against each other, but I'm very lucky that you know, again, I have a good rapport with the majority of agents out there, and you'd be surprised 10 years ago, you know, talking to agents 15 years ago, some of these agents have been doing this for a long time, like I have. They remember you, you remember them. Hopefully you didn't do anything to piss them off, and they'll work with you, and you have that advantage. And don't downplay the advantage of knowing the other agent. I mean, that really, for me, has helped out a lot. Matter of fact, my wife will many times when she's getting ready to show a house, go, do you know this agent? And if I do, sometimes it helps. I mean, not all the time, but it's a different world. And it seems like every week there's something else coming up that I just like, well, I thought I've experienced it all, and I haven't. And anyway, it's that to me is my biggest deal. And I agree with you that 1 hour deal is okay. Really, and I almost wonder sometimes, is the agent really doing it to get people, or is the agent trying to be a dual agent? You know, that's my other concern there, that are they really doing the best for the clients? And I want to think everybody's reputable out there, but I don't do that. I don't do those 3-day deals. I really don't. And I just feel like, you know, to me, maybe I don't think we're leaving any money on the table. I know we're not, because we're selling a house at a pretty good price. But I know the majority of the time, if it's an agent like you, bring me an offer, unless something catastrophic happens, it's going to close. And that, to me, I'm telling, and the sellers are now trying to plan their move, where they're going to. They need to know what their house is going to close. So maybe you leave 10 grand on the table, but you know you can move on to the next deal, and it doesn't cancel, which is happening a lot. And all of a sudden your next move is canceled. So I think there's a lot more than just the number you get for the house. It's how simple is your life going to be if you know that, you know, you get non-refundable, but you got somebody reputable like you and your wife on the other side, that I know it's not going to cancel unless something crazy happens. That means a lot. But if you're dealing with an agent you've never dealt with before, very likely it could cancel and everybody's plans start all over again. And it's so frustrating. And then all of a sudden your house is tainted. It's canceled once, canceled twice. What's wrong with the house? And I don't know. I just think it's not all about the money. Sure, it's a big part of it, but it's also being able to get your life in order to be able to move on to the house that you're moving to next, or the state you're getting ready to go to.
So if an agent was, you know, getting into the business now, and listening to this podcast, what would you say, like the first domino? Like if we had to say, you know, when people come into the business, I think they're so confused on what to do. Like, do I do open houses? Do I send postcards to a neighborhood? Do I do a billboard? Do I call people? What would you recommend in just this era of real estate? If someone got into the business, what would you recommend that their just first actions were daily that they took?
I would do exactly what I did. I would get a mentor. I think, you know, I know what I do. I mentioned before, when I got out of the nightclub business, I went to work with Mark and Ronnie for 5 years. And, you know, I was 50-50, and agents go, wow, you were 50-50. Well, you know what, but it was pretty good. I mean, it was a good deal, and I learned how to do it. And especially if you're gonna make this a long-term business, you guys are young enough to. I started when I was doing it when I was 30, and the mentorship was priceless because there were so many issues. People, and look, again, this is something I always say in my class: the people that get licensed in real estate school, you learn absolutely nothing that's going to help you in real life. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know any water rights questions. I don't know any liens or any easements. But what I did know is having somebody that you're working with that has had real life experience that could teach you and spend the time with you. Yeah, they're making money off of you, but that's a tutor. That's a tutor. It's like being in school again. You're learning on the job training. You're asking them questions. I'm never afraid to call the broker because I'm always in trouble. And the brokers, I actually call the broker sometimes from a different number, so they don't know it's me. But the mentorship is so important. And I know people sometimes their first sale is grandma, grandpa just passed away. They make 30 grand, think this is an easy business. And so I would say you've got to have a mentor. There's not even unquestionable, because okay, you pass the test of real estate school, you have no idea about it. You're going to get yourself in trouble if you try to take things on yourself. I'm not afraid, a 30-year veteran, of calling the broker 3 times a day. And it may be stuff that I already know the answer to. I just need reassurance that I'm doing the right thing. People they're afraid to call their brokers is a big mistake. Your ego gets in the way. But if you don't, I can't emphasize enough, you've got to have a mentor, 1, 2. I mean, okay, I did it for 5 years. But again, I'm going to do this for a long, long time. It was worth. I don't look back on it. I don't think I gave up anything. I learned everything I possibly could from 2 of the best salespeople in the business. But you've got to have somebody. There's some great teams out there. I just think as an individual, I could never have lasted this long, gone through all the highs and lows I've gone through, if I didn't have somebody teach me the ropes and the life lessons and how to sell in real estate. I was in the nightclub business, but I certainly didn't sell real estate. And you need somebody that's been doing like I've done that in their shoes. So the mentorship to me is A1. You know, forget the fact that you got your license. Everybody can get your license. but you got to have somebody real life experience to know what you're doing. Go on listing appointments, see how a real pro does it. There's always gonna be questions that come up during the listings. People ask some questions. You wouldn't have learned that in real estate school. So people sometimes will make up answers. That's how you get in trouble. So
Right.
the mentorship is A1 important, the most important thing.
Okay. We'll end this with what are you most excited about in the real estate industry? Like looking in the future, what are you just, we talked about some of the challenges and things like that, but like, what are you most excited about?
Winning. I mean,
Winning.
kicking somebody's butt. I actually enjoy people. I enjoy what I do. I know some people say, you've been doing it for 30 years. I love, I still like it. I don't like some of the stuff that's going on now, but I love it when people still call me to list their house or to find them a house. I know my work ethics, you and your wife the same way. Nobody's going to outwork me, and there's no way I'm going to let somebody outwork me that works Monday through Friday and doesn't work weekends or doesn't work after 5 o'clock. My kids are grown, so I can do that. So it's just and I reinvent myself every year. Whatever I did the previous year, as I said, on New Year's Day, your sales are zero, your volume is zero. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? That's when you say database, Chris, I go like, here's the files that people haven't hired me yet. And that's my database, not in the computer. I'm AOL. I'm very proud of that. But I just think it's still exciting, a challenge to me. This has probably been one of the hardest years I've ever had, just because it's different. But the strong survive in this market.
Do you feel it's like harder than when the short sale era, foreclosure era came? I find that, because I went through that era and I sold a lot of short sale listings. I had a little REO account where I sold some foreclosures, but, going through that market, for the first 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 months, when it's changing, it feels so catastrophic, right? But then it's weird how we just got numb to it. And then 4 years goes by and it's just the way of doing business.
Right.
I kind of tell my wife and my team that sometimes where, we're going through such a change, and those 6, 7, 8 months while you're going through the change, it's just, you're almost just learning a new business. It's not even a new business. It's a new way to communicate with your clients and what you've got to tell them in order to do what's going on in today's market. But I wonder if in a year, you and I, or 2 years, you and I are going to be sitting on another podcast and we're going to be in the same exact market, maybe less inventory. We don't know. And we're just going to be talking about how we dominate that market because we've gotten so used to it. So it's sometimes I feel like perspective of old market coming into the new market, it's hard as the transition's coming. But once it sits around for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I don't know, at a certain point, you almost get numb to it where it's like, this is just what my business life is. And I've just got to get up every day and keep grinding. Would we want it done a different way? Maybe if we could be in a perfect world. But do you feel a little bit of that? Like, is it harder than it was in other markets where it was transitioning?
By the way, I heard you say that in a couple of years you had, so I got to wait 2 more years to be on a podcast. I suck that bad. The one thing I'll tell you about the short sale foreclosure, which was always really weird. The difference there is when you sold a house, like say a house was a 900,000. If there was a short sale foreclosure in that neighborhood, it was not going to comp out because the appraisers had to use one of those comps. So at least we don't have it. But I look at, for me, I majored in college baseball. I actually had management. So I really don't have a law degree so this is what I do. So I think, I believe you've got, that's why you got to change the times. We survived the short sale foreclosure. This is not going to continue. This is not going to continue being the way it is. And I'm seeing, as I said earlier, we're going to see a lot of these agents dropping out because they did not know how to play the game. They did not how they got lucky. And I'm hearing it from when I did the podcast from the real estate company and our own. We're losing a lot of agents because the agents did not get mentors. So there's always going to be something. I don't know. This is not, as I said, for me, this has been probably my most challenging year just because of the whole new deal. Every year changes, but I've never experienced where if I have an offer, someone wants to buy a house, they have to wait 4 days, and maybe on the fifth day, they may have a chance. And that is frustrating because that poor client, again, I've got 10 other deals I'm working on. This poor client can't move on until they know they got that house. And I'm at the mercy of a realtor selling one of these deals to their client. And I know for a fact, some of these guys are dual agents. So you're kind of, hey, Chris, I'd love to have you in this deal, but this is my sale. I'm going to waive my fee on this side to make this deal happen. And, so I just, there's too many things that can happen when 5-6 days go by. That's why I'd rather do the deal on day one.
Yeah.
But I'm just, again, if people get anything out of this podcast, is the relationships you have with your competitors is probably as important as anything, because 85-90% of what we sell is through another agent. Not my, I'm lucky enough, I've out of my 35 sales this year so far, probably maybe 6 I'm a dual agent, but a lot of times I'm not. And I rely on my peers, the agents that to work with them. And I'm lucky enough that I have a pretty good relationship. But if you don't have a relationship with your fellow agent, you're going to be, and all your deals are waiting for 5-6 days. And then I just, that, if all my deals were that way, I would probably find another job. It's just not what I want to do. So you got to have a lot of irons in the fire and know that some of these deals are going to fail. I hate failing in anything, but you can't control what you can't control. And I think with these multiple deals now, you're powerless. And I don't like being in that position of being powerless. And that pretty much is what sucks for me the most in this industry right now. I like to be in control, and you just can't be with some of these deals. And that's frustrating to me, because you again, I said earlier when we first started the podcast, before my dogs started barking, is it makes you look bad with your client if you can't pull the deal off. And part of it is because the agent's not returning your phone calls or doesn't want to give you the time of day and goes, or I don't care who you are. And there's the lack of respect. So I'm coming back to that same premise, is respect your fellow agents, because the agents control the market, and you never know, that agent that you treat them right is going to remember you.
Who would have ever thought we'd be trying to figure out how to find inventory? Supply and demand and inventory are just words now that, really ring so hard in real estate. And, we all knew it, but you can know something and then be going through it where you really know it.
Right.
And just, it's so odd just to go around and just think like, wow, we don't have, like, we're realtors that broker these deals, and the inventory is just so scarce. It's really interesting. I think, what I appreciate about you is I've known you for quite a few years, is, like you said, you just want to win. I think that just those winners wake up and just got to figure out how to win. You're probably never going to wake up and just cry about the market. You just wake up and think,
oh, I do. I wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know what, man, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
There's sometimes I'll look at I made an offer in a house, and I don't want to look at my phone at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking the deal crashed. So maybe it will, maybe I won't. And then if I do look at it crash, I'm done for the rest of the day. So this stays by my bed. So yeah, it's I think that's where I go back to getting listings, is hopefully sellers don't underestimate agents that specialize in an area, or they know who they are.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of agents that spend a lot of money on advertising, whether it be TV, whether it be newspapers or things of that nature. I couldn't even compete with that kind of money that they're spending. But I go back to my grassroots and say, look, there's some agents that spend a ton of money, whatever it is they spend on, they don't know this area, and you don't know that agent. And I get it that they're spending a lot of money, whatever medium they're doing, and they may be successful at it, but there's no underestimating. I know every house in this area that's sold. I know all the schools. I know all the whatever it is in that area, the churches, the restaurants. You hire the best person in that area, and don't go for the glitzy ads in the papers and TV, because you're just getting an agent who's an agent. You don't get an agent that even knows your area, doesn't care. They're just there to sell your house, make some money, and move on to the next one. Where I think there's a lot, you can't, the value of having an agent that knows whatever's sold in your area, they know the people who live next door. Because one thing I do, and you know, I think you probably heard me say it before, I don't do showing time. I mean, I do if I'm showing houses. I make people call me on my listings. And reason why is I want people to know when they call me, everything that you put on MLS goes to all the Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. So your clients know as much as you do. I want you, Chris, to call me. I'm going to give you an advantage how to sell my house, because I'm going to ask you, I'm going to interview, tell me what is your clients looking for. And maybe there's something that clicks with me. I said, well, hey, yeah, there's, you know, this is in this area, 2 miles from here. You may not, you know, if I'm going to go show a house in an area that I don't know anything about, I want some help. I want an advantage that I wouldn't have had. So I think that's like, again, going back to that communication with the other agent, talking to them, saying, hey, look, tell me what you want. Tell me what it is you need. I'll tell you if this house is going to work for it or not. And people don't, you know, that is huge sometimes, where you come to see one of my houses and I'm giving you some advantage that maybe the seller didn't know it. I mean, the buyer didn't know it, that maybe could make them make the difference of buying one of my listings or not. So it helps.
Right on. Well, Bobby, I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
You dominate that area, and I respect you for that, man. Like, I go through that central area and see your signs, and I'm like, he's still running the game over there. So I know that you've got a great reputation in that zone. Obviously, you've got a great reputation overall, but people know you well there, and I just applaud you for what you've been able to pull off. I've actually told my wife at times, I want to be Bobby, like meaning like just go to a coffee shop or drive an area. Like you're so defined on where you want to work. And I applaud you for that, because you've made that. That's just not happenstance like that. You don't just wake up and that happens. People probably call you a lot and ask how you did that. And you had a plan and you bet on yourself and it worked. And I bet you if a lot of people would just bet on themselves, it would work. But I just think it's super cool that you don't find a need to, you know, build the big team like a lot of realtors do, or, you know, just do all of Maricopa County, which is a ton of cities. You've gotten very specialized with your niche market, and it shows. So, and I thank you so much for jumping on and spending some time with me.
You told me 30 minutes. I think we're an hour now. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll trade y'all. If I can have your head of hair, no, you know, I tell you the whole deal. I love helping people. And if people call me and ask me for questions, because I still have a mentor. He's 87 years old. I'll call him and ask him. You know, he's the guy that woke me up when I was in that open house.
Yeah.
And to have somebody that I can call, even as a 30-year veteran, is priceless. And I love it when agents call me and say, hey, can you help me with it? People still call you and ask you questions. They go, you're really gonna help me? I go, hell yeah, I want to see you succeed. I mean,
Yeah.
people have always been there for me. And I think that, to me, we owe it, as somebody that's been doing this for a long time, to be there for other agents. I want people, you know, I'm gonna give them the right advice. And if it's a broker question, I'm gonna tell them, don't ask, I can't answer that for you. I think we owe it to other people who are coming up and to answer, help them out. I mean, I want to see, I don't want them to take a listing from me, but I want to see them do well. And I take pride in doing that. So I still like what I do. But again, if you can give me some advice how you can grow hair like that, I'll help you any way I can.
Oh man, do you know what? It's real, man. It's real. I've got a guy who takes care of it for me and does it and gets it ready, but not daily, but it gets it cut and looking good. So
it looks good. It looks good. Say hello to your wife for me. Enjoy
I will.
it anytime. Hopefully don't have to wait 2 years to get me back on again.
Appreciate your time, Bobby.
You're welcome, sir.
Bye, man.
Thanks, bye.